He just said, "This is great."
That's awesome. Yeah, I imagine before it was working a lot of the IT stuff and doing tinkering his own cars or kind of mechanic stuff on the weekends or like on the side. And I'll probably, given what I understand about working in IT and tech, just how time consuming and like all encompassing those sort of jobs can be, that there'd be less and less time to spend on the auto mechanic and tinkering with cars, a hobby that he found so fulfilling. So it's cool that he was able to, when he moved, find a franchise that is able to support himself financially, but then also fulfills that auto mechanic and getting his hands dirty working with cars stuff that was much more fulfilling and that he probably was missing when he has been doing the IT stuff full time. So that's awesome. Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponteau. Each week I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Greg Mohr. Investors come to him to confidently choose the right franchise before committing six figures to their investment. The process removes guesswork, pressure, and bad fits, so they move forward knowing they made a smart decision. He also creates entrepreneurs through franchising. Over 12 years, he's guided 300 plus entrepreneurs through franchise evolution and evaluation and enabled them to open over 500 successful territories. He is a two-time Wall Street Journal bestselling author and of a real freedom and expert resilience. Congrats on your two successful books and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Carl, thank you very much for having me today. It's an honor.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show because I think there's an interesting opportunity for people, like you said, we talked about before, to move into franchising and as a way to kind of supplement their income, but there's some tweaks that people need to make when they're going from a career or a job and into running and leading a franchise. I think that sort of mindset shift about going from a leadership role either as inside a company versus being the kind of one at the top of this franchise is the sort of mindset shift that is be valuable for any sort of leader in the business world today, especially in the quickly changing startup space where you're trying to adapt and build relationships. So I'd love to hear more about kind of what you see are some of the keys for success for someone who is starting a franchise and stepping into that leadership role.
Well, there are a few things we look for, Carl, when we're looking at people to get into franchising. One is you've got to be able to follow processes and procedures, because that's what a franchise is all about. It's all about a process that's already been established. Follow these steps into that process, and you're going to be that much more likely to succeed on there. So you got to follow the process. You got to be a good person like that. You need to be able to be mentored as well. So they're going to have a mentor for you. They're going to basically what the franchisor does when they go into the franchising roles, they become mentors to others to show them, this is how I did it. You follow these processes and procedures, and you allow yourself to be mentored by me. Then we build up your business on that. And then communication, great communication skills, because you're going to be communicating back and forth with that franchisor on a regular basis. Big human to human connection there. You've got to be able to communicate with that. And even before you get into franchising, you got to have a little bit of risk tolerance as well, because it is a business. So there is some risk to it. But as long as you've got those communication skills, being able to be mentored, follow the processes and procedures, you've got a great human to human connection with the franchisors, your chances of success are that much greater.
Yeah, I really like that the point you started off with was the importance of it being able to be mentored and taking advice from other people, because especially if you're coming from either a career or other professions where you're seen as a subject matter expert of it, it's like your career, your entire life, and so you're going to know that business really well. It can be a a common pitfall, I'd imagine, for people to think that, well, I know this area really well. I don't need any help when it comes to moving into the franchise world, being a franchisee. And that mindset or that misconception is probably the key cause of a lot of issues, because there's that, misconception that they know so much about one thing, they must know that be able to handle everything else. So how do you recommend people, or is there like a process you use to educate people or help them realize that kind of how much they don't know, or how to help that identify them in themselves before they start this process?
Oh, absolutely. We go through quite a few questions together, Carl, when I'm on the phone or on Zoom calls with my clients. I get to know them a great deal. Like, where have you been? So what do you bring to the table? What have your past experiences? And how do they project themselves into the franchising world? And then where you're at now, as far as, how much time do you have to invest? How much money are you comfortable investing? And then where do you see yourself in the future? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. So we really look at their skill sets and what skill set do they really want to use on a daily basis that they would enjoy using on that. People have lots of skill sets. There's some that they enjoy using more than others. So we want to make certain that we make good alignment with the skill set that you enjoy using every day. And the other skill sets that are needed, we just hire other people to do those. But we make sure that key focus on that key skill set that you want to use on a regular basis is really what the franchisor is looking for and what they want you to have to help build that franchise system.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that what the skills they have that are actually applicable to the franchise they're looking at. And also, like I said, the delegation part is really important, because if they're trying to do all the work themselves, that's definitely a recipe for disaster. But I think it's interesting because there's this growing awareness of people that have had quote unquote successful careers. Like they're making lots of money, they have a comfortable lifestyle, but they feel kind of empty and don't feel like what they're doing aligns with who they are, and kind of they feel like, is this all there is? I'm supposedly successful. Why do I feel this gap? And I think one of the valuable, I don't know if it's I call it necessarily a perk, but it could be one of the main reasons to look at a franchise, depending on what's out there, is that if the nature of the franchise is one that is more in alignment with the sort of impact someone has with their life, or their vision for and their values as a person, not just as a professional, they have this money that they've earned from their current job or their career that they don't really feel fulfilled in, putting it into a franchise that is able to fulfill that kind of void in their lives when it comes to purpose and impact, and again, it still aligns with their skills, is one of those under realized values of franchising, because you're able to get because you have all the processes and stuff and the support and the mentors, you kind of get up to speed quicker to having the impact you want to have than trying to build it yourself from scratch. But it could be a way for people that are having those is this it moments, they don't feel fulfilled in their current jobs, but they have a lot in the bank, to quickly pivot over to something that is or add something to it that provides that fulfillment and the impact they want to have with their lives, and having someone that can help them understand what they are really going to find fulfilling and then match them with the right franchisor is way more valuable than people realize, than just the financial bonus, like impact they could have by having another source of income on the side through a franchise.
That's correct. Most of the folks that I come to, that there's just something missing in their daily lives, working at their job, that it's just, after a while, they just don't see themselves necessarily going or being where they're going to where they want to go to, or to be who they want to be. So they look towards franchising and running their own business as something that's a lot more fulfilling to them. Money comes into play, how much you can make, but it's not necessarily, Carl, one of the greatest factors in what people are actually looking for. in getting into franchising. Quite often they'll come to me and they'll say, I just want the franchises that make the most money. I'm like, okay, well, that's easy enough. I can go pick those out and see who's available in your area. But we'll go through my questions as well. And that's where I kind of figure out the different things that they like and things that they don't like. And then I'll come up with a few other franchises for them. And about, I'd say 75% of the time, they don't pick the one that makes the most money. They pick the one that has the greatest balance between how much they really want to make and then what they really see themselves doing on a daily basis throughout, the next 5 to 10 years with that franchise system. I find that they're looking for a lot more of something that's fulfilling more than necessarily something that's making a whole lot of money. But sometimes the other 25%, they match. The ones that make the most money are the ones that are most fulfilling to them because that's kind of exactly what they're looking for there. So it's more of what they feel fulfills them and fits their needs in many different ways over the next few years for them.
Do you have any examples that stand out in your mind of someone who initially came to you thinking about, okay, what's the most lucrative franchise, and then ended up going with something that was more of that balance that actually was more fulfilling and it wasn't quite as much of a moneymaker, but still was the right choice for them because how it matched with what they're actually looking for to feel fulfilled? Any particular case studies that stand out to you?
Yeah, I had a gentleman that was, he had been on the East Coast and he had been in IT and he'd been making a great deal of money in IT, and he moved over into the Midwest where they didn't quite pay as much for IT. So he said, let's find me a great IT franchise and then I can just run it myself and charge my own stuff and make my own money. So we went through the same thing, like I told you, we'd go through the questions, ask a whole bunch of stuff. And I came up with some IT franchises for him that he could run where he'd be making more than he was in the corporate world that he was in there in the Midwest. But we come to find out that, he really enjoys, tinkering with cars and working on cars, just love that area. So we ended up putting him into a mechanic shop, an Honest One Auto, as a matter of fact, we put him into, and that was a lot more fulfilling than doing that IT thing that he'd been doing for years and years and years. And he just said, this is great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I imagine before it was working a lot of the IT stuff and doing tinkering his own cars or kind of mechanic stuff on the weekends or like on the side, and probably, given what I understand about working in IT and tech, just how time consuming and like all encompassing those sort of jobs can be, that there'd be less and less time to spend on the auto mechanic and tinkering with cars, a hobby that he found so fulfilling. So it's cool that he was able to, when he moved, find a franchise that is able to support himself financially, but then also fulfills that auto mechanic and getting his hands dirty working with cars stuff that was much more fulfilling and that he probably was missing when he has been doing the IT stuff full time. So that's awesome. And what's the kind of timeline for finding one? I'm sure it matters like what's in the area and stuff, but is there kind of a general sense for how long the process takes? Because it seems like there's so many people now that are struggling with the lack of fulfillment and wanting to make a change. And what if someone is kind of identifying, okay, I want to make this pivot, I want to find a franchise, I want to find something that's more fulfilling. How much longer do I have to kind of stick with what I'm doing that maybe I don't enjoy, but in order to make the transition work, like what's kind of the time frame for when they first reach out to you to actually like, here's your franchise, you're up and running, and all those things are going? What's kind of the time frame for that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like, they could leave right away from the job they would, but they kind of have to be there until they get something else going on. So I'd love to hear more kind of like how long it takes, because it seems like it's quick and easy compared to starting your own business, but it still seems like there's a lot of, I'm sure, like time involved.
Well, Carl, it depends on which type of franchise you're looking at. My process itself, once you start with me and we get you a list of franchises, and we go through that process and we find one that you like, you sign on the dotted line, pay the franchise fee, that's 3 to 5 months. from that, just depending on how fast or slow you want to go on that. Now, once you've signed that agreement and you're ready to go, so you've got two different types of franchisor, two different types of businesses basically to look at there for a time frame. Your brick and mortar franchise, where you build it, they will come. You get A+ real estate. That one is going to take 6 months, 9 months to find a great real estate location and then get the build out done on it. So that one you may be looking at a year before you get it opened up from the time you sign. A lot of times less than that, but figure on just about a year or so that you're looking at. If you get into the service industry franchises where your clients don't necessarily know you exist until they need you, and then the franchises drive people to you when that need arises, you're looking at a small office or work from home. So that one's just up and running really quick. So generally within a couple of months of your signing that agreement, you've gone through the training, you've got your business license, you got your insurances all done, you're good to go. So within a couple of months after you get through with my process, you're up and running, you're taking off, and that's pretty quick. You start bringing in money and start bringing in clients right away.
Yeah, that makes sense. The actually having a brick and mortar location and trying to get all the like the leases and all any sort of remodels and all the physical like technology and things like decor needed for that, I can see that taking a lot longer. Would you say there is a kind of a common mistake that people make when they're first making this transition into franchising that is easily avoidable if people are aware of it, but so, you find people making a lot of the same mistakes, and what are some of those that people need to be aware of before they start down this path?
Before they start down the path, Carl, of actually finding a franchise and they're thinking about franchising, the thing to look out for is just because it's in fashion now doesn't mean it's going to be in fashion, years from now. So really look at the business model of what you're looking at for that franchise. So don't think that just because it's a fad right now, it's going to remain in place. Now, some of them are. I mean, Orange Theory took off really good. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to ask for an example of like what's one that like you saw a bunch of franchises open up and then they all kind of petered out because it was a fad. Is there one in particular you're thinking of?
Yeah, yogurt shops. Yogurt shops were a big fad here, 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. Everybody had a yogurt shop. There were so many different yogurt franchises out there because yogurt was just a big thing, a few years back. And then now I just see maybe one or two of them that have made it through that. So be careful of those things on that. I really like essential services, things that people use on a regular basis, like air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electrical, tutoring, senior care, restoration services, building maintenance, all sorts of different things that are needed on a regular basis on that no matter what the economy is doing, no matter what's happening out there in the world, these things people are going to use on that. So be careful of fads. When you're looking into franchising, you're looking into businesses in your area, whether it be a franchise or just any private business that you want to open up yourself or buy. What you also want to look at then is going and seeing the local SCORE chapter. That's SCORE. Those are all retired business folks. And those are good people to just run some ideas by. If you're looking at that, I did that when I got into my franchise. I went into local SCORE chapter. It's a free group, and they give you advice on what they think about the area and the business that you're going to get into. Those are good ones to look at. Make sure you check out funding options. All my investors like using other people's money, as long as the investment services the debt. I myself used my 401k plan as a rollover. I did not want to go into debt. So think about how you're going to fund that franchise and making sure you get enough money for it. Those are just a few of the things that you need to be aware of as you're going through the process when you start looking into franchising.
Yeah, I can see how the picking a business that is kind of evergreen and not a fad is really important because it is. It also seems like there's more and more of a need for a lot of like the trades and those sort of things because there's a lot of them have been, like private equity companies buy them up or like, and it seems like that area of expertise is in need of more business and more people with those sort of skills. So focusing on that for a franchise seems like a much surer bet than something like you said, the yogurt shop. And actually, it reminds me, there's a place in downtown Livermore. There's this one spot where there's been 2 or 3 different businesses in there that look like kind of frozen yogurt or ice cream or like things, and they've never worked in that spot, and it's just, I don't know if it's the location or it's just like there's not enough really demand for that sort of business. But it seems like that is an interesting way to think about, or thing to consider when you're starting a franchise is this a fad or is this a long-term need that people have? Because especially if you're thinking about what you enjoy doing, you might be really into something right now, but it might not stick very long. And so, especially with how long it takes to get going, if it's like a brick and mortar thing, you don't want to be like 6 to 8 months into the process and realize, oh, the demand for this is gone. There's no one, like, this is a waste of time and money. So a lot of great things for people to think about before they move forward with it. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please like, leave a review, and subscribe. If you want to connect with myself or Greg, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.